I'm here with Evan Farr, and he's a Virginia elder law attorney. First of all, Evan, thanks so much for joining me today and agreeing to speak with me and share this information with the users of our site. Second, could you just tell me a little bit about yourself and your firm and what you guys do and sort of how it fits into what we're doing here at Elder Guide?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me, Nick. My firm, we are in the DC metro area. We have primary office in Fairfax, Virginia, with satellite locations in Fredericksburg, Virginia, DC, and Rockville, Maryland. We're a estate planning and elder law firm. One of our heavy focuses in elder law is Medicaid asset protection, which, of course, ties in directly with your site and what Elder Guides is trying to do and helping guide people through the nightmarish maze of Medicaid, which is something that is almost impossible to do with even with the unlimited resources available on the internet.
Right. Yeah. And, obviously from our perspective, with I think close to 70% now people in nursing homes paying for their long-term care with Medicaid, it's a critical subject area to understand. Nursing homes are only getting more expensive. I think nationally it averages $8,000 or $9,000 per month for a nursing home. My guess is in your area, it's probably even more than that.
Well, actually, the national average in the latest study is over $10,000 a month.
Wow.
And in our area, it's more like $12,000 to $15,000 a month.
Yeah. So, somebody can just become depleted of assets relatively quickly. And then, the next thing is that with Medicaid, it's not only complicated to, understand once you sort of know where you're heading in terms of the care that you need, but sometimes it's difficult just to even determine which program you should be applying for, who you should, or which state agency you need to talk to. And states now, many have multiple programs and sometimes different programs for nursing care versus home health care or adult daycare. How does this work in Virginia? Can you sort of just walk me through the programs and what each does and how you'd get into those programs?
Well, there are in Virginia, we do have 3 different Medicaid long-term care programs. Of course, there's other types of Medicaid as well, like health insurance Medicaid, right, but we're not talking about that today at all. In the long-term care Medicaid context, the 3 programs are, of course, nursing home, which is the primary program. And then we have the home care waiver, which covers up to 8 hours a day of in-home care in Virginia, plus an additional 480 hours per year of respite care, which can be used pretty much how the family desires. And then in some areas of Virginia, we have the PACE program, which is a national program that uses a daycare model for people to receive Medicaid. The application process is essentially the same for all 3. With the home care Medicaid, you have to get something called a nursing home pre-admission screening done before or at the same time you apply for Medicaid. So the county has to come out with a team comprised of a nurse and a social worker, or they will do it remotely in some cases, and they will evaluate whether the person is in need of what's called the nursing home level of care, because that's required to receive Medicaid, long-term care Medicaid, even whether it's at home or at part of the PACE program. You have to be clinically in need of the nursing home level of care.
Right. And so I guess the first step here is you have to need this level of care. And then the next step is we get into these income and asset tests. I know in Virginia, the income test doesn't seem to be a big deal. It's a medically needy state. So my understanding is essentially, if you have excess income, you can simply spend it down on your long-term care, and you're going to end up qualifying as far as that test is concerned. Then we get into this asset test, and I believe you have to have under $2,000 in assets. And that sounds relatively simplistic, but then it gets quite complicated when we get into countable assets, non-countable assets. There's different rules depending on whether we're married and what type, and whether our spouse also needs services. The first question I have for you there is, how does that work if I'm going into a nursing home and I'm married? What is my spouse going to be allowed to retain?
Well, there's the default laws, and then there's what we can make happen as an elder law attorney. So you want the default laws first?
Sure.
Yeah, so the default laws, if someone does not hire an elder law attorney and just goes to Medicaid and tries it on their own, which of course is a terrible idea, but for those people who do that, they're going to be told that Medicaid is going to divide up all the assets owned by the married couple. And it doesn't matter whose name they're in, husband, wife, although we shouldn't even be using those terms really, just either spouse's name or both spouses' name. All the assets are counted up, tallied together. And then they divide those in half. And the healthy spouse gets to keep half of those assets, but not really, because that's subject to a maximum cap called the maximum community spouse resource allowance, which is, I forget exactly, somewhere about $125,000. So that's the default rules.
Right.
The reality with working with an elder law attorney with a married couple, we can protect all of a married couple's assets and get the nursing home spouse on Medicaid using over 24 different asset protection strategies available to us to protect assets.
That's amazing. And along those lines, you get into these particular types of assets, and different assets seem to receive different treatment. And one particular asset that most people own, obviously, is a home, a personal residence. How is real estate treated for the Medicaid asset test purposes? And does it matter if it's my personal residence versus an investment property or a vacation property?
Yeah, so it does matter, definitely. The primary residence is treated differently in every state. In Virginia, the primary residence is exempt, but only for the first 6 months that the person is living there, unless it's a married couple and the spouse lives in the home, and then it's exempt indefinitely. But it's only exempt for eligibility purposes. And this is a big source of confusion. When people read or hear about the fact that the home is exempt, they think that means it's protected, but it's not protected. Right. Because there is this thing called estate recovery that occurs in every state, including Virginia, where if you die owning a house or any other assets for that matter that might have been exempted during the eligibility process, they're going to snag you after death, because after death, the state's going to come in and claw back those assets as part of the estate recovery process to get paid back for all the money that Medicaid laid out for the nursing home care or the in-home nursing care or the PACE program that we talked about earlier. So houses, other real estate, investment properties, rental properties, whatever, those have to be protected or they're fully countable in Virginia. And for the primary residence, like in every state, it also has to be protected or else it's going to be gotten during clawback. And again, for a single person, it's only exempt for eligibility for 6 months, which is pretty harsh. Most states exempt the property indefinitely as long as somebody indicates an intent to return home, even though that may be a fictitious intent.
Yeah, so it seems like there's sort of two layers to the planning here. One layer, which is a bit more rudimentary, is just sort of how do I qualify sooner? How do I become eligible for Medicaid? And I can move my assets around in order to do that. But then the second layer, obviously, is how do I actually keep these assets permanently? Including after I pass away, or how do I keep these in my family for my spouse or my children? And it seems like, that adds another layer of complexity to the planning here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another type of asset I wanted to ask you about that most people own these days is retirement accounts. And we've got IRAs and 401ks and 403bs and different types of retirement accounts. They're all similar in some ways.
Right.
How are these treated? How are these treated, and does it sort of vary by circumstance? But what happens with retirement accounts for Medicaid asset test purposes?
Well, in Virginia, like in most states, retirement account assets are 100% countable towards Medicaid eligibility. The theory is if you can cash them out, if you can liquidate those funds, then those are countable funds, and you need to liquidate them and like any other accounts and pay for your care.
So it doesn't matter whether you're taking an RMD or not. It's just going to be
not at all.
Okay. Yeah.
Completely liquid, completely countable.
And what about life insurance and annuities and similar financial products? I know with life insurance, you got a couple different types. You've got term life insurance, which obviously has no cash value. And my understanding is that generally is not a countable asset, obviously, because it doesn't have, you can't get anything out of it without dying.
Correct.
But then you also have these universal life insurance policies, whole life insurance policies, where they have this cash surrender value. How are these treated?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's the cash surrender value that is what's countable for life insurance.
Right.
So they don't care about the death benefit. It's just the cash surrender value that is fully countable.
In general, it seems a recurring theme is that, this is complicated stuff. It might be one of the more complicated areas of law that exists even.
Medicaid is the most complex area of law that exists, at least in our country. And the Supreme Court of the United States has acknowledged as much.
Right. And, you hear just so many misconceptions from people about Medicaid, including actually even, attorneys and accountants and financial planners and people that, that are advising people in these situations. And you hear so many people think like that they either have too much money, they're never going to qualify, or, if they do, they're going to end up in, the worst quality of nursing homes or not be able to find one. And then of course, on the other side of the spectrum, you have these people that are, searching on the internet and thinking that they're going to do it themselves. What advice do you have for people that think that they can navigate this system alone?
Well, the advice is, look at the Supreme Court quote and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals quote that I believe are on the first paragraph of this page. And you'll see that Medicaid is the most complex area of law in existence, not something that people can navigate on their own. Dense. One of the quotes is dense language of the most tortuous kind. I think that's the quote, something like that.
Sounds about right.
Dense reading of the most tortuous kind. There's a reason that there are only about 500 of us certified elder law attorneys in the entire country that do this kind of Medicaid asset protection work. And that's because to become a certified elder law attorney, you have to go through a 5-year long process, ending up with a full day certification exam, which has, the last time I checked, about a 20% pass rate.
Oh. So, worse than the bar exam.
much worse than any state bar exam, which is why there's so few. I mean, 500 in the entire country, and that's this exam. This certification has been around since 1988, so it's not something brand new. This has been what's that 32 years.
Long enough.
Long enough. There should be several thousand. There probably should be 5,000 or more certified elder law attorneys,
right,
given the need and the baby boomer population. But there's only a little over 500 of us in the entire country because of the complexity of Medicaid. So this is simply not a do-it-yourself area. It's something that people have to hire an attorney to do any kind of asset protection. Even people who are who basically have no assets and are or very few assets, and they think, oh, we'll just spend down what we have until we're broke, and then we'll apply for Medicaid and we should get approved automatically. Well, that doesn't happen. There's nothing automatic. We have people in our office probably 2 or 3 times a week that have come to us for help because they have gone that route, tried to apply for Medicaid on their own, and been denied. Often 2 or 3 times they've refiled and been denied, and they have no idea why they've been denied because the Medicaid workers give some cryptic reason for the denial. Usually, it's completely red herring reason. They'll talk about. Almost always they'll say the person doesn't meet the income threshold, and which is nonsense because, as you pointed out, the very beginning of this, there essentially is no income threshold in Virginia. But almost every rejection we see from clients coming in on their own says income threshold not met.
Crazy.
And it's bewildering, but I think it's just part of the fact that the goal of the Medicaid eligibility workers in most states is to try to deny claims if they possibly can, and that's they're very good at that.
And having spoken with you and read the guide you produced for our site, and also looked at the content on your site, which, by the way, I'd encourage anyone to go check out. You obviously have just a wealth of information on this subject and great advice. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and speak with me and share this information. Thank you, Evan.
My pleasure.